Hello and welcome back to the Well House Exorcism. This is your hostess with the mostess, Shanna.
And this is her husband ready to do some paranormal talking.
Does my husband have a name?
A
husband has no name?
We do not have names.
That's PJ.
Just kidding, it's me.
Oh, darn it. You almost got me. You almost had me. So yes, I thought, why don't we do something, a quick dive into something fun. We were going to start Gettysburg, but then everyone in our family has gotten sick from COVID.
Yeah, should we do a little update on that?
We should. However, I just want to say, because of the diseases out there running rampant in our area, we could not get our other two on tonight, which would be Laura and Ray, because Laura especially, absolutely loves Gettysburg. So we're going to do a 5 to 6 part series. We're going to break it down, go over all the ghostly hauntings and the paranormal and the creepy stuff.
Mostly the history.
And all the blood.
Mostly the history. We'll have one episode on the creepy.
And the amputations. No, every place that I've chosen has creepy stories that go along with it.
So we're doing a creepy thing with each place.
Yes.
I thought we were doing like a creepy, at the end.
Listen, we can't go into too much detail, but I made sure that when I stacked the episodes that I've chosen, at least one of those places, every one of those places has a ghost. So the first episode, you got your thing, which has nothing paranormal to it.
Right.
My thing and Laura's thing, we have ghosts in those.
Nice.
Yes. So every episode, this is the Well House Exorcism, y'all.
I know, but we've been pretty historical, pretty light on ghosts.
I would say Penhurst is pretty heavy with ghosts. Something with Harrisburg State. We got historical.
Yeah, but it was 5% ghosts, our talks. We needed the context, and the horror is actually from the things that happened there. Do
not bring math onto this podcast, sir. Anywho, so yes, let's do an update then for our lives. So beginning of February, if you guys remember, I had COVID. That was fun because I had no voice and then we had to wait a couple days to record. But then I eventually got over it. But I killed off pretty much all of my sick days because as teachers and pretty much everyone out there, I think at the same time now, if you have COVID.
Everyone's feeling it right now.
Yeah, you got to use your own sick days and personal days. And then when you're out, you take unpaid days. It's lots of fun. Mm-hmm. So after that.
So Valentine's Day rolls around. We have an awesome interview with Jamie Stegmeyer.
So wonderful.
And then that night, 2 hours later, our 3-year-old is panting for breath. So to the ER we go.
Yep, that was fun.
Yes, I was running on 22 hours of being awake with no sleep. By the time we learned it was COVID, and he was...
And the rhinoenterovirus.
Yes. So he had the common cold and the coronavirus all at one time.
Poor kid.
Yeah. And so he was in the hospital for 4 days? 5 days, 4 nights.
Yeah, I was there for all of them except for one because I relieved you, and then I was told no one else can come. Well, we were also told no one else should come in because it was the most infectious version.
And there's no way you're going to let anyone else in.
I was not. Yeah, no, I would have stabbed you. Yeah. And metaphorically, I'll cut that part out. It's fine.
Disregard the scalpel that was by the bed the whole time.
The doctor, let me borrow it. Anywho, oh boy. No.
Why it was out of the operating room, we don't know.
We don't know, because I asked for one. They heard about my exorcism podcast. You know what? Here you go.
Anyways, he's home now, and he's doing great.
I'll tell you what, there's something more scary than your kid in the hospital, though.
Yeah, especially a 3-year-old.
Yeah, that was awful.
But for all of our friends and family and everyone who's offered us support and messages thank you, seriously. And food.
Oh, that was great.
Yes, that really means a lot.
Yeah, so I'll be honest now because I'll be honest to our listeners, but then to you, just because you're here. People were asking me, what can we do to help? And I'm like, honestly, if
you told me this.
Oh, did I? Okay. Yeah. I'm like, if you could make dinners for my family because I can't leave, and I'm afraid that if PJ is left alone at the house, he's just going to buy lots of fast food for the kids.
I had it nailed down. I was going to make all kinds of foods. I had spaghetti lined up, and I was going to make hamburgers, and then all of a sudden, food just started appearing. Won't complain about that. So.
No. Wow, this is awesome. A steak dinner and a chicken dinner and homemade mac and cheese. All right. Yeah, so thanks
Two
to all
different kinds of chicken dinners.
I know, it's great.
But seriously, yeah, thank you everyone.
We really appreciate it. Love you guys. So yeah, he's at home, and today is our last day of quarantine for him officially, which is wonderful.
Yep.
His oxygen levels are almost back to normal.
Mm-hmm.
He's almost, I mean, he gets tired very easily, you can tell.
Yeah, other than that, though.
But his first day back, his lips were like blue still from lack of oxygen. His lips are not blue anymore, so that's good. So that was our real life scary story.
Yes. Now on to the fun scary story.
Yeah, because we're not sure if this is actually real. Now, I did say originally I would never allow cryptids on this podcast.
But there's a loophole for this one.
But there is a loophole for this one. So first off, we should probably explain what cryptids are. So you go ahead.
So cryptids are the mythological beasts that may or may not exist. You know, you got your Loch Ness monsters, the most famous of the cryptids. Second most famous would be Bigfoot. Then there are the lesser known ones like Chupacabra, Jersey Devil.
Apparently Frogman.
Sasquatch, Yeti, Skunk Ape is one. Oh man, there's one right down in Reading. I forget what it's called though. It's a weird name.
There's one in Greene County called the Frogman. So I mean, we got one in Pennsylvania.
Yep. The Dover Mothman. The Dover Demon is one. Yeah, the Mothman is a huge one.
I do hold with you that the Jersey Devil probably is real, based on all the history.
I did the math because I figured you were gonna make fun of me for it.
Go ahead. So, no, I actually the stories.
So here's this. A horse at like a trotting pace can travel 25 to 35 miles a day. I looked it up, and so obviously the internet's right.
Okay.
But in less than a week, there were sightings. This is back in like 1700s, by the way. There were sightings of the Jersey Devil in New Jersey, and again, in less than a week, in North Carolina. This was before a time where word could travel that fast.
Yeah.
So how was this same weird goat bat-winged dragon creature,
Bat-goat man.
Yeah, bat-goat man, seen 400 miles away in less than a week?
Maybe it was an endangered species and now they're all gone.
And Napoleon Bonaparte's brother saw it. And
See, that's why I think it has to be like legit, because like there's actually
and then
a name
he like
attached.
he was like out hunting and he saw it and he's like, "What is this?"
I'm not going to hunt that. I'm going to walk away. So yes, those are cryptids. I will not be discussing Bigfoot or Sasquatch on this podcast.
Yep.
But I do find tonight's stories to have some kind of paranormal connection.
Yeah, because this may be a cryptid. It might be a ghost. Or
it could be something more satanical.
Something demonic or alien. All kinds of things.
What are we talking about?
We're talking about black-eyed kids.
And blue-eyed people.
Yep. Yeah, and...
Not me, okay?
The myth has evolved to black-eyed people.
Yeah.
There are adults that have been sighted. It's rare.
Yeah, the blue-eyed people tend to be adults, and they're actually called Nordic aliens.
Yeah.
Because they look very Scandinavian, so we'll get into that.
Yep.
So yeah, a lot of people have heard of the BEKs, or the black-eyed kids. I find that absolutely horrifying. I never want to see one of these people.
Oh,
ever.
well, I do want to say that the more you learn about them, the more likely they are to show up, just like the Men in Black. So listeners beware. The more you listen to this podcast and research them, the more likely they're to appear on your doorstep. That's part of the lore there.
Why are we doing this? Great. I have to go now. Bye.
Kids don't open the door if there's knocking.
Did I lock the door? No, they're trained. No, don't open the door for anybody except for Mimi and Da or Grammy. They're trained.
All right, we should probably get into this and
all right, so
and explain.
Yeah, let's do the blue-eyed people first, just because they're lesser known and there's so much more for BEKs.
Yeah, there's not a lot about blue-eyed people, and this is more your thing, so take it away.
Yeah, and I fell into this by accident because I got a couple new books for my podcast. So I bought a book called Haunted Hills and Hollows: What Lurks in Greene County, Pennsylvania, and it's written by Rosemary Ellen Geely. I hope that's how you pronounce it, and Kevin Paul Geely.
Yeah, it's a Geely.
Thank you. I like the cover too. It's just so so ridiculous. It's the woods, and there's a UFO, and there's a werewolf,
and some aliens.
I think this might be a ghost. I'm not really sure. There might be some ghost there. Regardless, it's the most ridiculous cover.
I love it.
So yeah, when I saw it on Amazon for like $3, I was like, add to cart.
It's very spoopy.
It's very spoopy. So anyway, there's pictures of look. Okay, now you gotta take Kevin Paul's picture. He's wearing sunglasses.
That guy's awesome.
He looks like a really cool Santa.
We gotta have him on the show. I'm gonna email him.
We're gonna do it.
Yep.
But in deference, then they actually did a lot of research for this. Actually, came to around the areas. So, fun fact: it does say here, Kevin Paul is a native of Greene County, and he's a paranormal researcher along with Rosemary Ellen Geely. So, I think that's kind of cool. Like, so they actually do a lot of research with this. So, I mean, research with, paranormal stuff and cryptids. But so when I was looking through this, I was like, what should I talk about? And I was looking through the book, doing the whole like flippy flip sound. And I just landed on black-eyed people. And I was like, no way. I know what these are. And I got really excited.
We have family from Abilene.
Exactly. So I was intrigued by it. And so then I flipped the page earlier and there was all about this person called the Weird Woman. And that's when I learned about Nordic aliens. So that's the term they use for blue-eyed people, but they're called Nordic aliens because they think they're, from that area, Scandinavia. And
they have that stereotypical Nordic look to them.
I like to imagine that they have come down from Thor and all that kind of, they're in Asgard. But anyway, so most likely they're fictional. Okay, but they're humanoid in shape. They supposedly they're supposed to be like gorgeous. So they're very Scandinavians. They have very light blonde hair. They're tall. They're thin. They're just really nicely statured. They look good. They're dressed nicely. Their clothes are always crisp. They look like they are on point, to use up our cool terms. All right. But they can be a little bit taller, like 6 to 7 feet, because Scandinavians tend to be tall. But the biggest thing is their eyes are super, super crystalline blue. It's like crazy. So they tend to be called like Aryan in terms of their coloring, which I know has a more of a negative stand to it now, but it's just the coloring that they have. But people claim that they're telepathic. But they also claim that they're benevolent and they only come around when someone needs like help. So almost like that angelic connection too, which I find interesting because usually you think of blue eyes and blonde hair being like the angel Gabriel, for example. Yeah. So I thought that was kind of like an interesting, but they're purported to have come from Pleiades. That's the constellation up in the sky. All right. So I just found that interesting. Okay, so that's the background of these blue-eyed people.
All right.
So in Greene County, this happened. Now, what I like about this is she gives names to people, and it's not like their real names. She likes to put like Marco, not his real name. So she keeps her helpers, anonymous. But I want to just open up by reading the first paragraph.
All right,
here I go. Marco stopped early one morning at a local pharmacy to pick up some items he needed for later that day. It was just after 9 a.m., and the pharmacy had just opened. He purchased the items he needed, climbed into his vehicle to leave, and began to back out of his parking spot. He noticed an individual standing in the drive-thru lane facing his direction. It was a woman of average height, dressed in conservative business attire, and holding a dark leather briefcase. It struck him as a little odd that an individual would be standing and blocking access to the pharmacy's drive-thru pickup lane, so he lowered his passenger side window to ask if she needed assistance. She replied that she did not and was waiting for her ride. Her demeanor was unusual, emotionless, almost stoic. Her blonde hair, poker straight and neat, framed a pair of bright, piercing blue eyes which peered unblinkingly at Marco. Her clothing, like her hair, was picture perfect and unrumpled. Her shoes were shiny and clean. So he first sees her, like, literally standing in the middle of the drive-thru for the pharmacy, just like there, standing politely with a briefcase. And I think initially he probably wasn't scared because it says later, like, well,
there's some woman standing there, you know, whatever.
She looks good, right? She's kind of like unemotional, but whatever. Like, okay, maybe she's like stranger danger, fine,
just
having off.
Yeah, having an off day or two or something.
Yeah, and so it kind of says here, like, he could tell that she was like very aware of her surroundings. She's doing what she was doing. So he drove off. Okay, so and you think that's it. But then, as he's driving a little bit further, he's driving past a community aquatic park and swimming pool, and he noticed a pedestrian walking westward along the very same route. He got a better look at the pedestrian, and he was stunned to see it was the woman he had just seen at the drive-thru pharmacy. So he slows down to get a better look. It's her. Everything. All the clothes, briefcase, straight blonde hair. And so it's just impossible that she would be there because it even says here, because they did their research, the fastest recorded speed for a human being on foot was 27.44 miles per hour.
That's insane, by the way.
Yes. So I just think that's interesting, that math there. So math is on my podcast. But there is absolutely no way that she could have traveled that in 3 minutes.
Yeah.
So that creeped me out. He's like, no, whatever. Maybe she's a twin, right?
Yeah, don't like that.
Yeah, don't like that. So anyway, he continues on his way, does his errands or whatever. He returns to Waynesburg later that morning, and as he's driving, he looks into a used car parking lot. And so it says here, as he traveled toward the center of town, he passed a used car lot and noticed someone standing between two shiny cars facing the street as if watching traffic. Marco looked over and was shocked to see the same woman. This time she was looking directly at him with her incredibly blue eyes and face that showed no emotion. And so I just find that intriguing because she's kind of all over. And as you mentioned, because I wasn't even thinking about this until you had said it, the more you start thinking about them, researching them, noticing them, they start showing up more and more often. So I wonder if that's similar for blue-eyed people as well. Because the next page, it says here, angels have bright blue eyes, but she did not fit the characteristics of angels. Angels usually show up in response to a need, such as a problem or crisis that needs solving. So I just find, again, like she shouldn't be an angel. And again, they usually come for benevolence or help, right? Because they're there in a time of need. So she couldn't have been that. So I just, again, like, how would you feel knowing that there's some blonde, blue-eyed chick following you?
Yeah, no, it wouldn't bother me.
I'm right here, by the way.
Yeah.
Badoom ching.
Hi.
Hi. Blonde hair, blue eyes.
So it wouldn't bother me.
Do I have striking blue eyes?
You do.
Oh, thank you. I'm not an alien, though. Why are you looking at me like that?
Yeah, passing her on the street, I'd be like, oh, that's weird. But I would be able to chalk that up to, my imagination or what. Even if I slow down and look at her, like, human brain, like we're willing to say like
to write it off,
to find an excuse for that. But then if you bump into her a third time and she's like staring you down like that, that's a little creepy.
And do you wonder, like,
because I'd be like locking my doors and I'd be pretty freaked out after that.
And I try to see this like through the idea of paranormal, like if she is an angel, does she have a message? Like, is there a message that he needs to? Because, like,
obviously not, because she shooed him away, though. When he asked if she needed help or anything, she could have been like, no, but I have a message for, but she didn't.
Or is she a guardian angel watching over him?
Blocking him from getting...
You cannot get your pills.
You don't want to come in here right now.
Don't take the Tylenol. Listen to me. Well, maybe she's like, no, I'm looking for somebody, waiting for a ride. And she's like, oh, crap, that wasn't right. I gotta go get him. She's like, running after him. And she goes to the used car lot looking for a car to hop in to go find him again. Maybe it was.
Maybe there's some guy who looks like him and she keeps finding him like, dang it, wrong guy again.
I just have one message to give this one guy. I'm terrible. So I'm intrigued. And so I was doing some internet research, of course, but there have been like, sightings of these, but it really started like in the 1950s. And so you wonder, were people like just paying attention to blonde hair and blue eyes then because of what had happened during the 1930s and 40s? You know what I mean? Like, could it just be like a natural like reaction to that, to World War II?
It very well could be. I mean, the other more ridiculous option is that's also the same time when the first UFOs were starting to be sighted. Oh,
that's true. Yeah, I didn't think about that. Yep.
And if the belief is that these things are aliens,
then it needs to get off my podcast. Or the angels just got closer. Because you wonder, like, you mentioned, like, the idea of, like, UFOs and aliens, but there's so much to be said for the idea that could some, UFOs or some aliens actually be angelic? Because look in the Bible, the discussion of what angels are supposed to look like.
Yeah, flying orbs.
Or many, many eyeballs. Like,
yeah.
It depends on what you're reading about that mythology, right? So, I don't know. I find it interesting. So that's my little side note from Blue Eyed People. And really cool. It happened here in Greene County, Pennsylvania. So Watch out, Greene County. She might be, if you see Greene County, if you're listening.
Yeah, right. Keep an eye out for a very finely dressed, blue-eyed, blonde-haired woman.
Kevin Paul, if you could go back, you live there, right? You're from Greene County. So if you could just walk around the streets and look for this blonde-haired, blue-eyed chick, tell her we said hi, and let's love to have her on the
craziest game
podcast.
of Where's Waldo ever.
Yeah, but we won't invite her into our house because there's bad things that happen with black-eyed children if you do that. So we'll come to you. We'll record live on the street.
Yeah, you can tell us how it goes.
Oh boy, record it and then we'll just play the.
Yeah, send us the recording.
Anywho, so that's the blue-eyed people. Now let's get into the black-eyed kids, or BEKs as they are known.
Yes.
So you tell us a little bit about it.
So the first recorded sighting of one of these was in 1996 by a man named Brian Bethel.
So I didn't really realize that till now. So blue-eyed people have been around longer than black-eyed kids.
Yeah.
Huh.
Well, again, they could have been seen before, but no one has ever came out publicly.
They thought they were crazy about it. Yeah. Oh, I'm crazy.
Until 1996. We know it was in 1996 because he was running some errands at a local shopping plaza.
Brian Bethel?
Brian Bethel,
yeah.
Yes. And across the street was a movie theater. On First Street in Abilene, Texas.
Which we've been in Abilene, Texas.
Yes, we have family there.
We do.
So it
Shout out to Abilene. It's beautiful. I did not believe it was a city. I looked at my stepmom and I go, "Where's the city?" And she goes, "This is a city, honey." And I go, "Where are the cars?" We like an open. Well, how'd you put it? Like we like to spread our stuff out down here. Like we don't like cluster. It was a cluster or something like that.
Something like that. Yeah.
Even the way she worded it.
Everyone was freaked out by how close the houses are to the streets here in our area, and all of Pennsylvania, really, houses are right up on the street. But anyways, it's currently the Westwood Twin Theater in Abilene.
Was it called that back then?
I'm not sure.
Okay.
But that's what it is now.
Okay. So it still exists.
Yes.
Good for them.
Mm-hmm. Anyways, so he is sitting in his car before he can, run his errands.
He wasn't writing checks, I think, to deposits.
Yeah. He was at a bank. He was at a bank about to deposit checks. And two boys, about 11 and 8 years old, approached the car. And they're wearing hoods. And he rolls down his window like a crack so he can, see what they want. And they ask...
Stranger danger.
Yeah. And they ask for a ride home to get some money to see Mortal Kombat. And,
I approve.
Yes, excellent choice. And he looked at the time. He's like, well, the last showing is already started. It started
an hour before, right?
It was only 10 minutes or so. But he's like, by the time
an hour before,
maybe. But he was like, by the time I get you home and bring you back, the movie will be mostly over.
Yeah, it'll be done.
So he's like, you really shouldn't. And the kids pressed him harder, and they're like, just let us in the car. It's not like we have a gun or anything. And
let us in.
Yeah.
It's not like we have a gun or anything. Please let us in. What weren't they like that? Like they were monotoned?
Yes, because that's the thing about Black-Eyed Kids is, and they're very similar to the Men in Black. Yes, like the Will Smith movie. But the Men in Black, real sightings of the Men in Black or encounters with them, talk about how alien they feel and how it's almost like if they had learned how to speak the English language from a book and never actually heard it spoken out loud, because they say all the right words, but the intonations are wrong. It's very mechanical sounding. It's just off.
Yeah.
And so every time someone has an encounter with one of these children, it's the same thing. They don't talk naturally.
Please let us in your car. Please take us home. I need to get money.
Yeah.
No, Satan, not today.
I picture it like the narrator from Windows XP. Please let us in the car.
I love it. Now they're less scary, they're just annoying. No, I became a baseball bat.
Please. So, needless to say, he did not let them in the car.
Good. Stranger danger.
That was a very good thing because bad things happen when you let them in. So, anything else from that story before we...
Well, then I think after... Because he was a reporter, right? That was why... Because he would not... He didn't want to ruin his credibility. But it's people took him seriously because he's like, listen, I'm a reporter. I'm not going to ruin my credibility. This actually happened. It was freaky. And so then there was claims of people seeing them in Portland, Oregon. But unfortunately now it's become like a creepypasta, like it's an urban legend, right?
Yeah, there are movies made.
Yeah, there was one made in 2012, I think.
Yeah, it looked bad. I saw the trailer. Looked terrible.
Hey, it was produced with Kickstarter funding, though. So, I mean, come on now.
Props to them. Hopefully, like, it won some awards and they were able to, like, try something with a bigger budget and make a career out of it. But that movie looked rough.
There was, during 1 week in September 2014, the British tabloid Daily Star ran 3 sensationalistic front-page stories about alleged sightings of black-eyed children connected to the sale of a supposedly haunted pub in Staffordshire.
British tabloids, when this hit, like, they exploded with sightings.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I learned that in my research, is that, like, a lot of stuff happened or came out in England where, like, with people like, oh, yeah, this guy saw black-eyed kids, so do we. Yeah. But there was one story in Vermont of a couple who a small child was knocking on their door late at night, and he just asked to use their phone to call his parents.
So I think that's actually in this book.
Yeah, there are a couple different variations of the story.
Well, I just got in this book we actually have Bethel's story, so I have all the connections, things that we got wrong or we weren't sure about. So
yeah, where there's like this story repeats for many people of like kids asking to come in and use the phone, or just to come in and wait for their parents. My parents will be here soon. I just need somewhere to wait.
And they said, "Please, I need to come in. Please let me in your house. I need to make a phone call. Please let me come in. It's almost time."
Yeah.
For what? Please go away. Oh my gosh.
And so this one in particular, the kid comes into the room. They let him in.
What? No. Stranger danger.
Stay
on the porch.
He had a hat on, and he was kind of like looking down. They're like, oh my gosh, it's like this little. He was like 6.
You need to get out of my house now.
And so they bring him in, and he just stands in the middle of the living room with his head down.
I finally got here. Time. What do I do?
And meanwhile, the wife leaves to make hot chocolate for him, and when she comes back, the husband is sitting on the couch like across from this kid, and his hands are covering his face because he's suffering a massive nosebleed, and he's saying, "Get this kid out of the house right now."
Yeah.
And he's like, "I don't feel well," and then power goes out, and as the power goes out, the kid says, "Mom, my parents are here now," and like leaves, like just like leaves the house, and they see him like get into a car with 2 grown men, and they drive off. Then like a series of terrible things happen. One of them got skin cancer. They found their cat in a pool of blood in the same exact spot where the child was standing. Yeah, nope.
Well, here's a different story I just looked up.
Mm-hmm.
So after the Abilene, story, people started being more honest. So it says, there was one that happened in the middle of nowhere, Vermont. An elderly couple heard the sound of 3 loud knocks on their door. They opened the door and saw 2 children, a boy and a girl. "Parents will be here soon. May we come in?" What? No one talks that way. The children did not make eye contact and just stood there in the doorway. The elderly couple were hesitant, but after a while, they just let the boy and girl inside. The kids settled themselves on the couch. The wife made some hot cocoa, and the husband asked them questions that went unanswered. They just sat there and didn't talk. When the wife returned, she noticed her cat was scared and angry with those kids, and they said, "May we please use the restroom?" So the wife looked at the kids, and she finally saw them. The children's eyes were as black as a starless universe. She directed them to the bathroom and returned to her husband, who was covering his face with his hand. Mm-hmm. He's like, "Did you see their eyes?" And of course, blood coming out of his nose. So that's your story there. So yes, power went out suddenly. Yeah. Our parents are here.
Yeah, so there are different variations of the story, which
makes you think it has to be an urban legend, right?
Exactly. There's another one of a man, I believe he was like a Marine or something.
Oh boy.
And knock on the door at like midnight. And he opens it, and again, it's like this little kid with a hat on, and the kid's looking down, and kid asks to come in. He's like, "No." And he shuts the door, and then like the knocking continues for a while. And the next day, as he leaves, the kid is standing outside his apartment complex because he just thought the kid was like from someone else in the apartment, you know, like just being an idiot kid. And but the kid was just standing in the parking lot by a dumpster watching him as he drove away.
See,
and when he came back
with them watching, like, what's interesting,
right? And when he came back that evening, the kid was still there in the same spot.
And see, like, you have to believe him, like, because if a Marine wouldn't be easily scared, you know?
Yeah. I just wish there were more, because all these are like, well, there's this guy.
Yeah.
You know, there's this couple. Brian Bethel is the only one who actually comes out and says, it was me. I saw this. Everything else is like, oh, I know this person.
I heard this from Joe down the street.
Yeah, I heard. Yeah, there's this story of this couple and this happened to them.
So what I find interesting, before I read from the book, is, you know, why are we discussing this on a podcast for ghosts? And the whole idea that they ask to be let in, like, they don't just walk in your house.
That's huge and so much mythology.
Yeah, but I just, you know, because there's so many different variants of what they could be then. You know, the idea of, like, you know, aliens, of course. Mm-hmm. But, like, I'm drawn to not vampires, although, like, that's a vampire.
That's big in vampire lore.
But what I find interesting is, like, it makes me think, like, satanic. It makes you think that they are demons.
Well, there are stories of them having, like, weird talon feet, too, which sounds very demonic, you know, like creepy things like that. The whole complete, because the reason why they're called black-eyed kids is they have no
whites.
There's no whites to their eyes, no color in their irises. It's just 100% black from lid to lid.
I like to think of Supernatural for that.
That's actually not a bad way to visualize it. Yeah.
Well, and, like, that's why I think, like, you know, and Supernatural, while, like, it can be campy, I love it. But, like, they do so much research to write those episodes. And
they definitely, like, delve into a lot of supernatural lore. Like, they talk about the Enochian language and Aleister Crowley and
all of it, and while they weave it into their own storyline, which totally makes sense, I know that
Aleister Crowley is a comedic relief role for most of it.
The angel Gabriel is like Loki, but I think it's really interesting because that's how they perceive, you know, demons, and the demons just can't, like, take over. Like, you have to invite them in, that kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
Like, and that's very true. People can be possessed, right? And, like, they didn't say, like, please, demon, come into me. But usually you get possessed because you do something that kind of opens you up for a possession, or you're weak in some way. Mm-hmm. And I don't mean that, like, you know, negative, like, you know, for example, our son Eli, because he had a speech impediment, he was
couldn't defend himself.
Yeah, so the demon wanted to, you know, whatever, moving on from that sadness. But it feels to me demonic, where you have these entities asking to come in. And so what are you inviting into your home, and can you get rid of them? Because when I was perusing the story then of that couple in Vermont, for weeks afterward, they had house issues. And, like, so there was, like, things breaking. I mean, you name it, things were happening in their house and around their house and in their lives. So
yeah. There's a book out. I haven't read it. I just saw it in my research.
Yeah, on Amazon.
What?
On Amazon?
Yeah. Yep. But it's called again, I'm paraphrasing. I don't remember exactly what it's called. But it's called My Experience with Black-Eyed Kids and My 3 Months of Hell.
3 months, yeah.
So, yeah, like, every time someone interacts with these things, like, bad stuff happens all the time.
And 3 is a very religious number.
Yeah.
So isn't that interesting?
But so,
I hold that they're probably demonic.
Yeah.
What do you think?
I'm not sure. Like, I would probably say demonic. Yeah. Because I can't imagine it be anything else. Like, I understand why people would say alien, because the whole Men in Black thing, like, they are very similar to Men in Black in how they act, and again, the speech patterns and everything. Because, again, the Men in Black talk just like that. Like, the Roswell family, the family that, like, discovered the Roswell crash, they were badgered by the Men in Black for a long time. Oh. And the one thing they always talked about was how weird these people were and how
Did the Men in Black have black eyes, though?
No.
So
yeah, they just wore black suits and everything. So, like, there's a theory that they're, like, the children of the Men in Black, or, you know.
Well, then they're losing their kids. Seriously, get a daycare.
Because people have
seen Men in Black daycare.
You know, like the one story, you know, like, they have seen these men that the children like quote unquote belong to that like get into their cars and drive away when they say my parents are here.
Well, because most of these kids, they're supposed to be kids, and their ages like 6 to like 16 usually.
Yeah, not too much older than mid-teenager.
It's fascinating.
Yeah, so I understand why people would say alien, but it doesn't make sense to me that that would be alien. I would definitely say demonic.
Plus, I don't see a UFO in the air, so.
So the question is, do you believe the stories?
Well, I'm not done yet.
You're not? Okay.
Because there's black-eyed people were seen in Greene County. All right. So just to go back for 2 seconds, the whole story with Bethel. So it was 9:30 at night. Like I said, he was running an errand. The two boys were odd, and he said he gauged them between ages 10 and 14 tops. So they were, as you mentioned, kind of young, but those are the ages he kind of gave. He even mentions like the clothes they wore, like even the details, like very, very detailed.
Something else that I'm sure you'll see in there is that like every single time someone sees one of them, immediately like red flags go off in their brains. Like get away from, like danger, get away from these things.
Survival instinct kicks in.
Yeah.
So we have him asking to go to Mortal Kombat. He looked up and he noticed that it had been like, it's already started an hour ago. It says here, as he hesitated, the taller boy grew more insistent and demanded that Bethel let them into the car. It was then that Bethel noticed that the youth had solid black eyes. He floored the gas pedal and sped off. Good for him. Good.
I'd be out there.
Yes. And so after that, of course, we have the explosion of BEK sightings. Now, of course, it does mention here that one young BEK knocked on a door and asked the residents for ketchup for his apple. So like there's some crazy sightings.
I think that was the Marine one.
Oh man,
I want to say that's how it started.
Oh, my gosh, could you imagine? Ugh. All right. But that, of course, it has mutated almost into the idea of like these becoming adults. So it's not just children; it's also adults now too. It says here, people who had encounters with black-eyed people reported ill effects afterwards, sudden onsets of illness, runs of bad luck. So it's like this like Grim Reaper is like hanging upon them. So what happens here, I guess, in Pennsylvania? Okay. So it says here, as we mentioned in the introduction, mysterious phenomena remain consistent throughout the ages, but adapt to changes in society and technology and acquire new names. The black-eyed people have a great deal in common with men in black, who harass mostly UFO researchers and witnesses. They too exhibit bizarre behavior and leave behind them a toxic trail of mishaps and illness. MIBs came along with the modern UFO era post-World War II. But their roots also go much deeper. Looking into history, we find many accounts of, quote, dark ghosts or, quote, dark mystery people who have the same quirky behavior, appropriate for the times, and ill effects. A century or more ago, people did not call these things black-eyed people, but a rose is a rose is a rose. So going back even further, we can trace similarities to the black monks, phantom monks, and phantom nuns, sinister cowled or hooded figures. Even stories of the man in black said to be the devil fit the mold. The bottom line, they are dark figures with darker black eyes who are up to no good. Yesterday's hooded black monk is today's hooded kid or adult. So I say we're right. They must be demonic. So what happened here in Greene County? So again, Justin, not his real name, protected for anonymity. He actually had an issue when he was out near Carmichael's in Greene County. So he says here, Justin's first encounter occurred while he was sitting in traffic in a construction zone. No surprise in Pennsylvania. Yep. Near the town of Carmichael's in eastern Greene County. Two younger adults, a man and a woman, were in a car behind him. The driver had been tailgating Justin until they were stopped. What really caught Justin's eye was the flash of a bright blue light in the passenger side mirror of his truck. Thinking it might be a police car, he searched the mirror to determine if there was in fact a police officer approaching with lights and siren. At that point, he noticed the bright blue light again, only to realize it was coming from the dashboard of the car behind him. The man had long hair, which obscured his face as he was looking downward, but the woman's hair was parted in the middle and revealed her face. Her countenance, according to Justin, could be described as stern or even angry. Her eyes looked like two black holes, and she was clutching a device in her right hand and pointing it at his vehicle. It looked rectangular and emitted a series of bright blue flashes similar to LED lights. Red, green, yellow, and blue. How would you feel if they were behind you, PJ, so far?
Annoyed. I would be very annoyed.
How dare you? So moving on from there, it says traffic began to crawl forward, and the long-haired driver of the car began tapping his horn as if to get Justin's attention. Justin signaled a left toward Waynesburg, while the black-eyed woman and her companion signaled a right turn for Carmichael's. As they crept toward their turning points, and the driver hung his head out the car window and started shouting, "Hey, hey, hey, hey," as if to get Justin's attention. He ignored them and drove home. But of course, he felt disturbed the entire time. So moving on from there, they actually compare his experience to one that was hard to explain. Two friends of Rosemary's, so the writer of this book, were on their way from Point Pleasant, West Virginia. And it says here, Joey Madia and his daughter, Jolie, had met up with some other paranormal investigators in Point Pleasant. Joey and his wife, Tanya, a sensitive, are veteran investigators, and Jolie is a sensitive as well. So they had an encounter on the road with a man in black driving an old black car. He was holding a strange-looking, brick-sized black box in one hand. He was pressing it against his face like a man would an electric razor, although it clearly was no razor. As they approached a tunnel, the MIB shot forward at high speed and disappeared. Joey commented that the box reminded him of freaking phone boxes, which were popular in the 1960s, especially among young people. The boxes would fool the telephone company about long-distance calls so they could be made for free. In both cases, it seems kind of creepy. Then back to Justin. All right, so that was a comparison. So back to Justin. So apparently we have Men in Black close. This was West Virginia, but close. And they're still using 1960s technology? You'd think they wouldn't.
Well, it just looked like that, though.
But it probably was.
It might have been, yeah.
Which makes me concerned. Did they, get downsized after Roswell? Could they not afford to... They could even, get a razor, It was early 2000s. Let's get some decent flip phones at least. I don't know. All right. So later, a BEK, so a black-eyed kid, came to the door of the Waynesburg store where Justin was employed at the time. And he was allegedly looking for the restroom. So Justin is right now working by himself because it's, business was slow. Mm-hmm. So he's by himself. And he's already had the creepy run-in-ish thing on the road, right, with adults. So now he's just there hanging out and the business is slow. So he's just watching people drive by and walk by on High Street. It says he noticed two youths, a boy and a girl, walking up the opposite side of the street. As they passed businesses, the boy would open doors but not go through them, while the girl stood by or sometimes sat on the curb. That's creepy. Open the door. May I come in? No.
Oh.
Okay. Is that what was happening?
I'll just sit here.
Please let us in. No, thank you. We're closed for you. Anyway. So it says, Justin had the impression that the young man was opening doors and asking a question of those occupying the buildings. Again, may I come in? No. The two soon approached Justin's door, and following the same pattern, the young man opened it. Justin described him as a medium height and about 13, 14 years old. He was not tan, as if he had been outside much, but rather his skin was pale, sort of ashen gray. So, yes, alien-esque, if you ask me. His hair was curly, and his clothes were nothing extraordinary. His eyes, however, were black as coal, with no visible whites or pupils. Yes. So Justin, of course, is creeped up because it felt like you're staring into that black abyss again, right?
Yeah.
And the young man says, "Do you have a restroom? Do you have a restroom? May I come in? Do you have a restroom? May I use your restroom?"
Wait till the discotheque. And it's like they know English, but they don't understand it.
Je veux la fenêtre. It's like, you don't have to say it 5 times, honey. If you said it once, the answer would be yes, but now it's
Do you have a restroom? Do you have a restroom?
But without any inflection.
I know. Well, maybe they're just trying different inflections. Do you have a restroom?
Do you have restroom? Do you have restroom? Do you have? No, if they ask it one time, it's in the back. Ask 5 times. You know what? No, I do not, because you creep me the heck out. Bye.
Every time I hear about black-eyed kids, I don't know how many of our listeners are going to know this, but from the first 2 Max Payne movies, there is this show in the game called Sender Unknown.
Sender Unknown.
And this guy is being haunted by a hallucination of a pink flamingo. And the flamingo talks like these black-eyed kids. And the big thing it says, its catchphrase that it says all the time is, mirrors are more fun than television. And so every time I read about BEKs, I just picture that voice
flamingo in your
and
head.
that phrase.
Oh, boy.
But that's how I picture them talking, because it's very similar. That mechanical,
Do you have a restroom? May I come in? So right away, Justin felt fearful. So he had that, that kick in the, like a survival instinct, if you will. Now it says here, Justin was fearful of the young man with the coal black eyes. He was momentarily unable to respond, perhaps to the shock of once again seeing a black-eyed person. Quickly recovering, Justin suspected what the young man really wanted was access to the building. Can he walk through the door? Because then he has access. I don't understand. Anyway, his request to use the restroom was denied. Justin suggested he use one of the public restrooms he had already passed, which seemed to anger the young black-eyed kid, but he and his female companion went on their way. So, and it goes on to say that Justin, had never believed in BEK stories, but after that, seeing them in quick succession, he's like, you know what, maybe. But in keeping with all the other encounters, of course, Justin had some misfortune. So following all the different stories, it says after the traffic encounter, he suddenly became quite ill, requiring extensive and expensive medical tests to determine the cause, which is kind of sad. And then after the restroom incident, so he got, had those issues after the car. After the restroom incident, it says he became violently ill within 4 hours and was quite sick for the next 48. Well, it very well could have been, food poisoning. It was just interesting because no one else got sick. It was just him.
Yeah.
So right here in Pennsylvania, we got our own black-eyed kids and blue-eyed people.
Yeah. Another neat story.
And some brown-eyed people, too. Hi, PJ.
Hi. Another neat story that I read.
Is it neat?
It's neat. It wasn't from Reddit, but a similar message board site. I think it was Quora.
Okay.
Where this girl who knew what BEKs were got a knock at the door. And being smart, she looked through the keyhole or the peephole and saw a BEK on the other side. Immediately, she saw the black eyes and she was like, no, I know what these are. And she locked the door and went to her room, shut that door, closed it, and just sat in her bed. And there was knocking for a while until finally it left. And she's like, I didn't sleep that night.
No, yeah. Are our kids quiet upstairs? Hey guys, don't open the door. Hey you, kids. Oh, crap.
Yep.
We just got back from the hospital. Now we have BEKs in our house. Dang it. So then the question is, would they then, do we think they're demonic? Because
Right.
Because you asked me, but before I went to stories, do I believe in them? I believe in the demonic. I believe anybody can be possessed, So, I'm not going to say there aren't BEKs out there. It just hurts my soul to think that, you have these children who are possessed. That's what bothers me.
Are they possessed, or is it just something taking the form of one? That's what I'm thinking it is.
But if something can take the form of something else, wouldn't they make the eyes look normal? If you can look like a human, you don't get the eyes wrong. I don't know.
Yeah.
So now I gotta do some more research.
This is a weird one. This is probably my favorite of the cryptid weird stories.
Is it or isn't it?
Just because of how creepy it is. It's incredibly creepy.
Well, and I feel like going back to this book, so good job to Rosemary Ellen Geely and Kevin Paul here. Looking at history, I'd like to do more research on dark ghosts and dark mystery people. And of course, to the hooded figures and those, phantom monks and the black monks. I just find that to be interesting. So could it be something in the Catholic past, that monks that turned negatively?
Yeah.
So, I could see that. Yeah, I'm with the Catholic Church and I'm Catholic, but we got some pasts,
Yep, that's for sure.
So maybe it is corruption, but again, children, why kids, PJ?
Easier to get in. You feel bad, that innocence there. You're more willing to let them in. See, I never ever once thought that these things were real kids.
Oh, that's true. Yeah, because they just kind of disappear.
Right. There's some kind of creature. They're not human. Whatever they are. They don't act human. They don't look human.
Maybe they're like some kind of cool parrot, because parrots can mimic human voices, right?
Yeah.
My new favorite parrot is Kiwi.
It's a new brand of parrot. It looks like a people.
Looks like a people. A humanoid parrot. Well, because I'm watching that Kiwi the parrot, on Facebook. Mwah! Shout out to Kiwi the parrot. You're the best. Oh, it gets me through the day. Who's a good baby? I can't. Oh, see, now I'm less creeped out because I thought about Kiwi. If I watch some more Kiwi videos, I can go to bed tonight and not, have nightmares.
Yeah, I was listening to another podcast about this. I don't know if I want to say their name, because I don't know if I like their podcast. But
well, I listened to one. This is back in the day too. Last Podcast on the Left.
They did a really good one. Yeah. But I was listening to a different one, and I have my back to our front door as I'm listening to it, and the whole time I keep glancing over my shoulder at the door, because it's just a creepy subject. There's something about it that makes my skin crawl.
When do they go away? Because our front door is glass, and then there's more glass.
Well, that's the thing is, yeah, exactly.
So then over there,
yeah. And that's the thing is, they will linger and try for a while, from what I've read. Not too long, but they will sit there for a while and try.
So you got the holy water, and you just squirt them in the eyeballs. So we also have Mormons that show up. So it is what it is.
Yep.
All right, so that's all we have, though. So
yeah,
we don't know if they're
But do you believe that these are real sightings? Because we only have one confirmed sighting. So how do you feel about this?
Until Bethel says that he did not see them, I believe him.
Yeah.
Because he hits the gas and floors and gets the heck out of
Dodge.
Yeah,
what does he have to gain from? Well, I guess he has a lot to gain from this, because it would make get his name out there.
In that
it
sense,
could also discredit his name.
Exactly, ruin him as a reporter. So that's why I think he was afraid initially to share. So I think there's just strange things that we can't understand. And we live in a house that we know we didn't believe could have anything terrible at first, So
yeah.
I think since, circa 2006, 7, or no, it was 2009. 2009, 10. Yeah, I was 2006 we started dating, right?
Yeah.
Since then, I've become more open to the idea that there's a demonic presence in our world. And so I would say that it's plausible. Mm-hmm. But I would say they're more demonic, more vampiric kind of idea, where they have to be invited into your car or into your house. And what's to say that when you invite them in the house, you then become a black-eyed person or a black-eyed kid?
Yeah.
Maybe that's how it works.
See, I don't remember if it was BEKs or if it was a different American
cryptid.
Cryptid. There was a Native American tribe that had lore of a wanderer would enter into the tribe and corrupt several members of the tribe and wander off with them.
Yeah. So we look at this book shows it too, the idea of historical accuracy and looking in our past. If these things have existed, for hundreds of years, then I could see them being around Native Americans too. And what's interesting is if you look at our history, what I find so fascinating is that there's these archetypical stories that exist across different groups that never interacted. You have the Native Americans who have the sky world, and the female falls through because she's, she falls through. Whole different story. And she creates the world, and she gives birth to 2 children, blah, 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 the whole thing. I should say mom, grandma, and 2 kids. So there's the whole world's created by a female. And so very similar to our idea of God and the Virgin Mary and having good and bad. I mean, so it's just very and they of course they have this tree of knowledge too. The Native Americans had never met Christians because they predated that. Different countries across a vast ocean. So you have all these different groups that never interacted. And they have these very, very similar stories. So it makes you wonder, and it makes you have to realize that maybe there is something that's demonic that is walking and prowling about the world for the ruin of souls, to kind of quote the St. Michael's prayer, right? So they have to exist, whether they're black-eyed kids or if this is something demonic. Like I believe in the demonic because I believe in the holy. It's part of our religion.
Yeah.
So I'll tell you what though, if I see any black-eyed kid on my porch, I'm gonna get my baseball bat. With holy water. And so if anyone tries to punk me and like put some black contacts in their eyes to scare me, talking to you, Kyle, then you know what? I'm gonna take care of business.
In Cherokee lore, they're called the Moon-Eyed people.
Moon-eyed? Because that's white.
Because they're unable to see during the daytime. So they traveled at night.
Okay. And a lot of these sightings happen in the evenings.
Yeah, American legend. Undoubtedly, this is from ancientorigins.net. So it's a .net. Take it with a grain of salt. But there are other websites to talk about too. I'm just using this one. Undoubtedly, the most mysterious of all Native American legends is the story of the Moon-Eyed people, mysterious white men that warred and intermingled with the Native Americans long before the Europeans arrived. Mostly the Cherokee, and the Cherokee would frequently have to drive them out. Here it is. So the legend says these men, ostensibly white, were unable to see in the daylight, and that they warred with the Cherokee. The latter expelled these wretches, and wretches is in quotes. That must have been a term that they used for them. They expelled these wretches and settled in their lands, where they remained for generations after. Yeah.
And again, completely different area, different country, across vast ocean. No way they could have had this. So there is I just really believe that there has to be something, that these have to be something satanic. It has to be demonic, that is just walking.
Or is it tied to the land? Is it a...
Well, they want to go watch Mortal Kombat, so I'm going to go with probably. I don't know.
Yeah.
And why Greene County? Why are they going over to Carmichael's? They don't have to. Anyway, so we have a creepy thought from Kyle. We're going to kind of round out our evening with him. Usually we put him in the middle, but we're going to round out our evening with him.
Yeah, our conversation was a little too lively. We just...
I think it just it all worked nicely together.
Yeah.
We mentioned history, so we're going to go back to Harrisburg State Hospital because Kyle has his creepy thought.
All right, here we go.
I thought it would be a good idea if we turned Shanna into the girl. I thought it would be a good idea if we. I thought it would be a good idea. I thought it would be a good idea if we turned Shanna into the girl from Ringu.
This is bad. This is really bad.
It's a Ouija.
I love it.
Yep. Every time he says, "This is bad. This is really bad," I'm like, "Yeah, that intro's rough." I just like so good.
It's some Ouija. What I miss, though, is him going, "Girl, you in danger." I miss that.
So many of the places that you've covered start out with the best of intentions. They start out wanting to help people. What is it that makes them go so wrong, though, and turn dark? Is it apathy, malevolence, prejudice? Does the darkness grow there, or were good people inspired to plant a seed of darkness before the first bricks were laid? The Quakers believed that the solitary confinement in Eastern State Penitentiary would inspire thoughtful repentance and peaceful incarceration. But when Charles Dickens witnessed the madness and paranoia, violence and self-harm that it actually wrought, he wrote, "In its intention, I am well convinced that it is kind, humane, and meant for reformation. But I am persuaded that those who designed this system of prison discipline and those benevolent gentlemen who carry it into execution do not know what it is that they are doing. I hold this slow and daily tampering with the mysteries of the brain to be immeasurably worse than any torture of the body. And because its ghastly signs and tokens are not so palpable to the eye, and it extorts few cries that human ears can hear, therefore I the more denounce it as a secret punishment in which slumbering humanity is not roused up to stay." To Charles Dickens, being haunted by spirits to change a person's heart was preferable to a stay in one of these kinds of institutions.
So I like his opening comment because I agree that did they initially think, like, were they doing this for the best possible reason, or was there always a plan to hurt people? No, they start off with the idea they want to help somebody, but their logic is flawed. They want to have this like open floor format, or they want to have like, solitary confinement, whatever the plan is. They think this is the best way to rehabilitate and to save lives. And then it all goes awry. And so I see it more like what happened at Harrisburg State. Well, possibly. Because again, allegedly, we're guessing based on the lack of information. And of course, at Pennhurst, you have...
allegedly at Pennhurst.
Not allegedly. Anyway, you have the best ideas, but then you let the government take over, which means lots of people being tossed in there. It's when you start pushing the envelope in terms of how many people you can take.
Overcrowding and understaffing.
And that's what we have right now with the Meadows, right? So I feel like the best intentions are created, and then once you put it into action, it can't happen. That's a utopia, A utopia sounds like a wonderful thing, and then it isn't, because it can't be.
Yeah.
And Charles Dickens, I firmly believe that he was schizophrenic. Like, you've seen The Man Who Invented Christmas, but for our listeners who, if they haven't, please watch The Man Who Invented Christmas. Because
it's a fantastic movie.
It really showcases what it was like to live with him.
Now, did he actually see people like that, though? Or was that just an artistic choice from the movie?
No, he actually did talk to his characters.
That's messed up.
Yeah, so, he would hear their voices, and he would keep a book of, the names. Like, if he heard, interesting names, he'd write them down. He's like, I'll use that one day. Because he invented words. The Christmas Carol, there was no such thing as a stave for the different chapters of it. He used the word stave because it was musical. That's why you see so much music in that too. Like, it starts off with music, ends with music. But yeah, to quote, it says here, every word said by his characters was distinctly heard by him. So he would actually, I hold that he was schizophrenic.
Yeah, seems like it.
Or it's had some kind of psychosis, which made him a fantastic writer, but just
he was able to channel it in a very specific way.
Yes, but not in a healthy way. He had his own writing room, and you were not not allowed to go in there, which the movie got really well. And after a while, his wife had to leave. It just wasn't safe because he got more and more violent. In his room, he would just destroy things in his anger because they weren't helping him write his book or whatever. So I hold that he heard voices in his head. Yeah. So in any case, maybe what he saw there, maybe it scared him because he could be living there if he hadn't channeled his work, as you said correctly. So it's just interesting. So
it was really interesting.
Yeah,
I didn't know that. I really thought that was just an artistic choice.
No,
from the movie.
Heavens, no, nope. But yeah, he would write. He actually wrote about it. He wrote that he saw the people too. Yep. But his friends said they recalled him saying that he had heard his characters speak and he would talk to them. Again, you're walking past his working room and you hear him yelling at Scrooge, "Please shut down and be quiet. I gotta get this done." And everyone's like, "Oh, he's just working again." They were. That's why, in the movie, the one maid comes in to deliver. He's like, "You're not supposed to be here."
Yeah.
And so he wants to sack her because she came into his room when he was trying to work. So, no, he wrote beautifully, but he was very much a troubled soul. That's why he and Poe were such good friends, because they understood each other.
Yeah.
Because I think obviously Poe had some problems too.
Yep.
So in any case, Kyle, thank you. I think they start with the best intentions, but then too many fingers, too little of a pot. People want to make money. There's just humans are fallible.
Yeah. I don't know if in terms of Pennhurst, I guess even Harrisburg too, I think a lot of it is just laziness too. We have these people, where we put them, let's just shove them over there. It's apathy mixed with laziness, mixed with, and we talked about this in Pennhurst too, the reluctance to accept change because change means work. It's a lot of work to really change something.
Yep.
Especially in terms of bureaucracy and things like that. It's even more work than...
Yes. If it ain't broke, don't fix it.
Yeah. Just for an individual, it takes a lot of work for change. for a whole community, like that's a mountain of work.
Yep.
And it's just so much easier to ignore it and shove it off to the side.
You ignore it until you can't, and then you fix it with the cheapest duct tape you can find, to use that metaphor, right?
Yeah.
I feel like if you're doing it by yourself and you're helping somebody, you are more invested in helping. But when you get too many hands in the pot, that's when the problem's going to arise.
Yeah.
And then like lack of training, that kind of thing. So it's just unfortunate we really haven't come very far either, but there were doctors working at Penhurst just to do scientific experiments. They wanted to get their names out there. I'm sure Harrisburg had the same things because they were doing the water torture. I mean, bathing. So I hope that the idea started as a utopia, but utopias can't exist. So we'll go with that. That's how we're going to word it. But thank you, Kyle. It was a fantastic
really good insight.
Yeah. And you mentioned you quoted Charles Dickens, so you're a winner always in my book, doll. So we're going to sign off now. Hopefully you are, enjoying your evenings and you're looking out your doors and you're freaking out. Just be careful. Don't let them in. Do some research. Don't let them in.
Yep.
But starting next week, we'll have Lauren Ray back because they'll all be healed and healthy, and we'll be healed and healthy too. Quarantines and isolation will be restricted or will be lifted. So we're going to start our mini series of Gettysburg, all the locations, the hauntings, the death and the amputations.
Yep.
So have a lovely evening that has no BEKs or blue-eyed people too. And stay safe out there, I guess. Keep your doors locked. Have a great night.